The Battle of Glentaisie was an Irish battle fought in the north of Ulster on the 2nd of May 1565. The result was a victory for Shane O'Neill over the Clan MacDonald of Dunnyveg. The conflict was a part of the political and military struggle involving the English and occasionally the Scots for control of Northern Ireland. Although the MacDonalds were a Scottish family, based principally on the island of Islay in the Hebrides, they had long been associated with the Gaelic polity rather than the Kingdom of Scotland. The background: the settlement of the Glens of Antrim and the north coast of Antrim by the MacDonalds of Dunnyveg and affiliated families had been worrying the English authorities since the later years of King Henry VIII of England, as the primary allegiance of the MacDonalds was to the Scottish crown. Shane O'Neill's alliance with the MacDonalds had provided him with the army of Red Shanks that permitted him challenge his father Conbatch, Earl of Tyrone, during the 1550s. Lord Deputy Thomas Radcliffe, Earl of Sussex, had led a well-equipped expedition by land and sea to destroy the MacDonald settlements in 1558. Sussex's conspicuous lack of success had encouraged the English to make an uneasy truce with the MacDonalds in 1560 in order to detach them from their alliance with Shane. During this truce, an increased sense of security in the new territories encouraged the MacDonalds to undertake a number of building projects, such as the rebuilding of James MacDonald of Dunnyveg's castle of Red Bay, which commanded the strategically important landing beach at Glenarry. During 1564–5, the expansion of MacDonald influence to Locale threatened to bring much of the eastern coastline of Ulster directly under their control. Much of the province of Ulster had now come under Shane's authority in the period following his return from his visit to London. The reduction of MacDonald power would remove a growing threat that the English had already begun to exploit against him before his London visit. It would also serve to underline the failure of Sussex in his undertaking of the same task 7 years earlier, and dramatically display to Queen Elizabeth I of England just how useful her recognition of Shane's hegemony in Ulster could be to her. The campaign. Shane assembled his host for the attack on the MacDonalds at the Tower House of Feedon at Fathom Mountain, near Newry. Traditionally, he kept Easter at Feedon, and an assembly of his clan would be unremarked until its size drew notice. The final size of his army was about 2,000 men. Its composition probably followed the numbers he fielded the following year: 200 horse with 200 horse boys, 300 shot, 120 longbowmen Scots, 40 Scots redshank swordsmen, 250 Galaglass, 550 Kerner armed with short-throwing darts and short swords or dirks, 290 heavy infantry contact foot soldiers, 200 cavalry. The MacDonalds could expect Shane's sizable host to take some weeks to cross from south down into the territory on the Antrim coast. The Lord of Dunnyveg and of the Root and Glens, James MacDonald, 6th of Dunnyveg, and his brothers started gathering as many warriors in the Highlands and Islands as they could muster. However, Shane advanced with unprecedented speed, cutting a road 6 marching men wide in a single week through the dense woodland of the forest of Killulta, Coilulta, the Great Wood of Ulster, situated along the shores of Lough Neagh between modern Logan and Aldergrove. Within a week the hosting arrived at Edenduff Carrick, the principal castle of the Clan O'Neills, where Shane fortified an old Rathford Gallina while awaiting the hosting of the Clan O'Neills. Sorley Boy MacDonald gathered a small holding force at a forward base at Clough Doine. He He attempted to stop Shane's advancing army at Knockboy, a wooded pass in the hills above Shane. Sorley was attempting to gain time for his brothers to gather a sizable hosting from amongst their kindred and supporters in the Highlands and Islands, and to transport the host into the glens by sea. Shane swept Sorley's ambush away, took Clough and sent a force of cavalry to seize James of Dunnyveg's recently constructed castle at Red Bay. They surprised the garrison of Red Bay Castle, set it alight and break it down to the ground before James MacDonald, 6th of Dunnyveg's host, could land at the adjacent beach at Waterfoot, with the landing beaches at Waterfoot and by Cushendil now controlled by Shane's army. The first few hundreds of MacDonalds and the MacLean allies under James and Angus MacDonald were compelled to land further north. They landed at Ballycastle Beach to await the locally raised MacDonald host that Sorley Boy now led over the Kerry Mountains, traditionally by the Old MacDonald Road, an early road that runs to the west of the modern Cushendon Ballycastle Road. The plan was to await the arrival of the brother Alexander, the MacDonald Senecal of Cantyre, who was assembling a second host composed from latecomers to James of Dunnyveg's hosting. The battle. Shane O'Neill did not permit the MacDonalds any time for the reinforcement to arrive. His advance guard continued to press the retreating MacDonald host, who fell back from the beach through Ballycastle. They were driven past the area of the modern Diamond and well away from the River Toe, denying them the necessary water supply for a sizable host. Both armies set up camp for the night. Shane's army occupied land at the centre of modern Ballycastle, between the modern Diamond and the River Toe, giving them full access to water. The combined MacDonald army of around 500 men occupied the exposed higher ground at Ramont, with only a small well for the needs. At very first light, about 3:34 a.m., Shane attacked uphill with a sudden onslaught led by his heavy Gaelic infantry. By foregoing the customary exchange of spears, darts and arrows by the light infantry Kerner and Scots archers that customarily preceded the usually decisive deployment of the Gaelic Corrigard, or battalions, Shane surprised the MacDonald host. The MacDonald leaders tried to rally the men, but after a violent interlude of some confusion, they broke and fled over Knocklade Mountain in the direction of Glenchesque, heading back towards the beach at Cushendon. James of Dunnyveg was seriously wounded in the early fighting and his brother Angus MacDonald killed, reputedly later in the rout while attempting a holding action at a standing stone sited just below modern Breenwood. Shane's secretary, Jero Fleming, writes in the battle's aftermath, "We advanced upon them drawn up in battle array, and the fight was furiously maintained on both sides, but God, best and greatest of his mere grace, gave us victory against them." James and Somerlade were taken prisoners, and Angus, the contentious, slain. John Roe slain, together with 2 Scots chiefs, namely the son of MacLeod and the son of the Laird of Carricknar, scathed great numbers killed, amounting to 600–700. Few escaped who were not taken or slain. Traditionally, the attempt to flee by the old mountain road between Greenan and Ballypatrick Forest in an attempt to reach a possible landing place for their Berlins at Cushendon Beach was finally stopped at a hollow at Legacapel. Sorley Boy and James were both taken prisoner. James died of his wounds 2 months later at Castle Crocker, near Strabane. The brother Alistair Og MacDonald had landed at Rathlin, with the final levies raised in the Highlands and Islands, reputed to be 900 men. However, in the immediate aftermath of Shane's decisive victory, Alistair could achieve nothing without a base on the mainland. Shane marched on along the north coast to mop up the MacDonald garrisons and deny Alistair any foothold from which to launch a MacDonald recovery. Dunseverick and Dunluce fell within a few days, and Alistair returned to Scotland. The aftermath. Brian Carrick MacDonald, the younger brother of James and Sorley, gained from the eclipse of his older brothers in the year following Glentaisie. His alliance with Shane made him the most powerful MacDonald in the Glens and Root until Shane's assassination by his nephews in 1567, and his own death the following year. The death of James of Dunnyveg in captivity at Castle Croker on 5 July 1565, within months of the battle, left the lordship of the Glens nominally in the hands of his sons Archibald MacDonald, 7th of Dunnyveg, and Angus MacDonald, later 8th of Dunnyveg, Sorley's nephews. Sorley Boy, previously simply James's seneschal of the Glens and Root, acquired considerable authority as the last remaining MacDonald of his generation still resident in Antrim in the years after 1567. After leading a protracted 20-year struggle to defend the Glens and Root against the O'Neills of Clandboy, the MacKillans and the English, Sorley had his authority confirmed with an unexpectedly decisive victory at the Battle of Ora in 1583. Shane O'Neill's defeat of the MacDonalds at Glentaisie had cleared the way for the elevation of Sorley and his descendants by removing his eldest brother James of Dunnyveg, proper inheritor of the lordship of the Glens and Root and claimant to the prestigious lost title of Lord of the Isles. Sorley Boy successfully followed Shane's political example and rejected questionable English overtures until he was successful enough to press his demands his own terms. His nephews, James of Dunnyveg, received recognition of lordship of the Glens from the Lord Deputy, Sir John Perrot, in 1584. Sorley Boy held out longer and received recognition for his claim to Ballycastle and the Root in 1586. Bibliography. Brady, c. The Killing of Shane O'Neill. Some New Evidence in the Irish Sword, Volume 15, 1982-3. Brethnick, c. The Murder of Shane O'Neill, in Eriu, Volume 53, 1992. Hill, A. Shane O'Neill's Expedition Against the Antrim Scots, 1565, in the Ulster Journal of Archaeology, Volume 9, 1861. Hill, A. An Historical Account of the MacDonalds of Antrim, 1873. Hill, J. M. Shane O'Neill's Campaign Against the MacDonalds of Antrim, 1564-5, in the Irish Sword, Volume 18, 1991. Hill, J. M. Fire and Sword. Sorley Boy MacDonald and the Rise of Clan Ian Moore, 1993. Webb, M. The Clan MacQuillan of Antrim, in the Ulster Journal of Archaeology, Volume 8, 1860.